everybody. Before we jump into today's episode, we have two sponsors we want to say thank you to for supporting this show. The first one is Routine. You guys have heard me talk about Routine, honestly, back from the early days of the podcast, and it's still a product I use every single morning. They have a prompt for me here. I'm going to do a little impromptu on this ad read today because honestly, this is a product that I truly believe in. And so I'm just going to tell you guys exactly what I think and why. First and foremost, this is a stat that they shared, but when you sleep, you lose between a pound and a half of water. And most of that's just sweating while you sleep. I used to not know if that was actually true, to be honest. I felt like a pound to a pound and a half of water seemed like quite a bit while I slept. But the one thing I did constantly pay attention to when I started using Routine was just the fact that before using Routine, I always felt a little dehydrated in the morning. And I'm one of those people that when I get up really early usually. I work out. One of the first things I do is some form of fitness. It's just like what I do before everyone's awake. And so it's very easy for me to grab a coffee, pre-workout, an energy drink, something with caffeine in it, and just go. When I am good about using Routine, first, I basically they come in these little single serve packets. They contain half an organic lemon, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, Himalayan sea salt, all 6 essential electrolytes, and they have no sugar in them at all. A lot of hydration products are going to have sugar. So one of the things about Routine that I love is that there's no sugar in there. So when I am good about doing this consistently, I will take one of those single serve packets, I'll throw it in my mixer bottle, and whether I also put in a pre-workout or something with caffeine or I just drink that separately, I try to drink that first. And the days I do that, I do genuinely feel hydrated and just have a different form of clarity all morning. A lot of people have tried to make their own homemade versions of Routine, right? You see people they take a shot of the apple cider vinegar, they put a little sea salt, a little lemon in a drink. This is essentially that, but in a product that you can take with you on the go, have it ready for you first thing in the morning. I know me personally, when I'm groggy rolling out of bed, the last thing I want to do is, squeeze a lemon, cut lemons up, go get the apple cider vinegar, find my sea salt. I just rip this packet open, throw it in my water, drink it, and it's good to go. You can try yours today. If you haven't tried it yet and you've been listening to this podcast for years, just try the damn Routine. Give it a shot. You can use code ShaneWhite30 and get 30% off your first order. So you get 30% off by using code ShaneWhite30 and go to yourroutine.com. To make it even easier, I've added the link to yourroutine.com in the show notes. So just click on the show notes for this episode, click on the link to yourroutine.com, and don't forget to use code ShaneWhite30. All right, guys, today's episode is also brought to you by NeuroRoast. Again, I'm going to go a little off script here. NeuroRoast is a product that I also came across during this year of 2023. They are a coffee company that's helping you optimize your brain function and overall well-being. This is another product that, to be honest with you, when I first started working with it, I was a little on the fence. I was like, do I really want to have mushrooms in my coffee? Well, folks, I will tell you, when I use NeuroRoast, one of the things that has stood out to me the most is I'll back up. People that know me know that I have way too much caffeine, typically. One of the things this year I've done a good job of is cutting out alcohol. Not completely, but predominantly, I don't touch a lot of alcohol anymore. What I think I've actually done the other way, though, is add a lot more caffeine. So I do definitely drink too much caffeine. That's something I need to work on next year, is to try to minimize how much of that. But NeuroRoast is something that has actually helped me because of the way they've formulated their coffee. Like, unlike regular coffee, which is, still something I consume, but NeuroRoast specifically doesn't cause jitters or crashes. Mushroom coffee provides more balance and sustained energy, allowing you to stay focused and productive throughout the day. So the times I do use NeuroRoast, I'll be honest, I just don't feel that jittery, like, I'm jumping out of my chair or standing here at my desk jumping around feeling. So give NeuroRoast a try. They have some really good flavors. I'll be honest too, the two guys that started NeuroRoast are just really good dudes based out of New York, and they're hustling, and hopefully they can get some people to try NeuroRoast this holiday season by listening to this podcast. So for you folks who've been on the fence, I'm telling you, it tastes delicious. They've done a fantastic job of making this coffee not only be functional, but taste fantastic. And if you want to try NeuroRoast, you can use code ShaneWhite. So it's super simple, just ShaneWhite at checkout. you'll also get 30% off. So if you go to neuroroast.com, and once again, I have added that to the show notes. So just click into the show notes while you're listening to this episode. You can click on NeuroRoast link directly. Don't forget to use code just Shane White, and you'll get 30% off your order. Hope you guys love both these products. I'm trying to not only bring you guys products that I use, but that I believe in on the podcast. I'm not taking ad reads for any brands that I don't really believe in. So anyway, hope you guys love both those products, yourroutine.com and neuroroast.com. I've added those links to the show notes. I hope you guys love it. And I got an awesome guest coming up right after this. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Shane White Show. I am pumped today to have Sophia Cheng on the podcast to talk about her brand Oddball. Sophia, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I am good, and so honored to be here today.
I'm really appreciative of you coming on. I know one of the things I always do, I didn't say this before I hit record, but like I'm going to use, if anyone's watching, like quote unquote, my research, because it's funny, Sophia, one of the things that I've loved about this podcast is I try to do research and I look you up and do a lot of different things with the brand, but ultimately I want to just dive into your 0 to 1 story. And this is a tip for anybody. I feel like with interviewing, you can get way too like, here's my 15 questions I want to try to cover in an hour. And I've always found that just letting it be organic and like, I have questions, but ultimately like, I really like to go with the flow of how the conversation's going. But one of the things that stood out to me was mind blowing. I mean, I'm not blowing smoke. It was your background. Your background is nuts. I just kept scrolling and I was like, holy shit, Sophia's done all kinds of stuff. So we could probably spend half the podcast going into all your stories. And I definitely want to dive into a few because I think I'm certain it has led you to where you are today. But would you mind giving everyone listening today just a little bit of a background into who you are and what Oddball is?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of my background, just for everyone to know, like I didn't grow up in the US, right? I grew up in Singapore and I grew up in Hong Kong. I came here for college. I have always thought about being an investigative journalist.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was working at, the Wall Street Journal during my senior year, et cetera. But, that didn't happen. And I ended up being a management consultant right after college. So, traveling Monday to Thursday, mostly working with Fortune 500 CPG companies. Eventually, I left to join one of the largest hedge funds in the world called Bridgewater Associates. And I joined the family office side of things with Ray Dalio, so working primarily on private investments. Yeah. So
I saw that. I was like, oh, I wonder if she's getting a bump into Ray. That's so wild. What a cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you were around him, weren't you? Yeah.
I think, I'm sure you're aware of this, but Bridgewater is a very, I would say like eccentric organization, right? Like you really have to like not fit in, but just like believe in like what principles are, right? And what like Ray believes in all that. Definitely I've had multiple and many run-ins with Ray, right? I was in a family office side of things and, I had a lot of interaction and I consider like, I think every founder has like the founder that they like, that has helped shape who they are as a person and who they are as a founder. And that's great for me. And I think I joined at a time when, it really allowed me to work on but also be involved and be exposed to all these different entrepreneurs that I was able to meet through, the private side of things and private investment side of things, but also just his approach on systemic thinking, right? So what he always talks about was how to drive systems changes, right, at scale. And so I think that was one of the most important things. And that was also how I caught, the venture entrepreneurship bug. Was at the time at Bridgewater.
Yeah, it's funny. He's on my list of people that if I ever ran into them in person, I don't want to say I would like clam up and not know what to say, but they're like, he falls into the same bucket as like Warren Buffett, where I have so many things that would come to the front of my mind that I'd have to like be really, really, really careful about. Just be like, take a deep breath, just say hi, ask something simple. You know what I mean? Like I've taken so much from the stuff that he has shared with the world that I would be starstruck and then be like, fuck, think of one smart thing to ask.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I was the same, right? When I was in college looking for jobs, like working at Bridgewater was my dream job, right? Like that was to me like where I wanted to be, where I felt like that was like home for me. And so I really like it took me multiple tries to get to Bridgewater essentially. And first time I met him and first time I was in a meeting with him, I was like, this is like what happens after this, you know?
Well, that's what I was curious. Like, not that is like the tip of the mountain for someone who wants to go into that field, but kind of like depends on what your end goal is.
Exactly.
I mean, how many people are all trying to gun for that spot that you got, and then you got it? What was your mindset like when you started there? Like, what was it? Do you remember that first day you were there at Bridgewater? What was it like?
Oh yeah, no. I was so young back then, I was 23. When you enter Bridgewater, you go through 30 days of principal training, right? So Principles is the book that Ray Dalio is known for.
So they like do they assume you've read it? I'm guessing when you interview, like it's kind of like if you haven't read this, we're not
I
going to
think you have like at least like a base knowledge of it, right?
Sure.
But you go through 30 days of like, you're really just like diving into principles. Like it's just 30 days. It's called the Principles Boot Camp, right? And it's a guided program, like you're paid for it and all of that to really like understand what all this is behind. And
Whoa.
I think a lot of like, how I run Oddball and like how I live my life was like really based on, principles and what it has taught me, right? And it's not for everyone. And I don't want people to think that it's like for everyone, right? But it like a big part of it is for me, right? And so that's kind of, how I took it and ran with it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I can imagine. I could imagine it would be overwhelming, and then also they obviously hired you to do a job, so like they wanted your expertise when you came in. What was your role like there? Like, what were you focused on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not at liberty to talk about it in super detail because like it is
I know, honestly, before I asked that question, I didn't even think about the sensitivity of that. That's probably like a super. That's funny. Yeah, that is probably like when you get brought on, it's like not like an open thing. Is it like your role is not super public?
yeah, especially like when it comes to the private side of things, right? So it's
Sure.
it's pretty
Wow.
confidential, but yeah, I think I did a lot of it was during a time when it was like building a bicycle while riding it, right? And I can't go into a lot of details, but I worked on both like the family office side of things and also the foundation side of things, right? And really touched like impact investing and as a topic, right? And it
Sure.
was very exciting, right? Because even now today, like I think impact investment is like a topic is just so controversial, right? Like anything that's like from a pure grant to like all the way to like emerging markets investing, right? Like that's just the entire spectrum of it. But that was really like the time when I'm able to meet incredible entrepreneurs that are trying to do like incredible things that is driving like all these system changes.
Wow. Yeah. And so to fast forward a little bit, you're obviously there. You were there for I think what 2 years, 2-ish years, something like that.
I was there for about 3 years.
3 years.
I was doing a reverse commute, so I was traveling between New York City to Westport, Connecticut, which is a 2-hour drive.
Oh, that's fun.
I know. I was waking up at 5 a.m. and coming home at like 9 p.m. and I was just like spending 20 hours on the Bridgewater bus every week. And I was like,
Oh my goodness. I remember, it's funny. I have the same experience of up until I started Noble, I was commuting at least an hour. Yeah, at least an hour each way. I mean, since I graduated from college in 2014. But I vividly remember, Sophia, like I remember there was a point during COVID where everyone was like, I'm ready to go back to the office. And I was like, the amount of time I got back helped me start a podcast. I started a business. Yeah, I'm never commuting ever again in my life.
I cannot do that again. Like, in my
No.
early 20s, like fine, like, but like that 4 hour commute, I was just like, oh my God, like what a
Well,
thing.
when you start to like really audit your time and you realize how much time people commute, it's kind of insane. It's like, wait,
Insane.
what? To go sit in an office to hopefully interact with people, and then if you don't that much and you should have just gotten work done. Like
Yeah.
I always thought about that. It was like yours is really long, but I was thinking like 2 hours. If I had something where I knew I was going to be heads down, like headphones in for the day, and outside of the meetings I had, I'm like, why am I spending 2 hours like getting to the office to just need to focus around a bunch of people who are going to distract me?
Pretty much get like having calls next to people.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like why wouldn't I? Why? Yeah, exactly. Why would I just stayed home? So that's funny. So you okay? So you when you leave there though, what was it like leaving? Because I think like as exciting and I'm sure as insane of a feeling as it was to join, I'm sure leaving was tough. Was it not?
Yeah, no, it definitely was. I think also being at Bridgewater is it's a very, very challenging environment, right? Because I'm not sure if, people or about, and Ray writes about and talks about this like
Yeah,
all
not
the time,
much,
right?
but
Which
yeah.
is, the overarching principles of radical transparency, right? And so when you enter Bridgewater, like you have all these tools, right? So for example, like the dot collector, right?
Hmm.
You're constantly just rating each other every single day for every single reaction, interaction, right? To like the idea here is that it gives you a full picture of who you are and like where your strengths are and how you like compare against other people, right? So it's a very rare moment in time for me, especially where like I get to understand like what really are my strengths and my weaknesses, but it's really tough, right? Because I think like most people want to say that like they're like, good at receiving feedback, but when it comes down to it and the feedback is harsh, because most of the time, like, right, like especially a place at Bridgewater where there's like compliment sandwiches are not tolerated, right?
Okay,
So, like
sure.
it's really just pure, brutal, honest feedback. Like, and so it really is a muscle that you need to learn, right? And so I think like when I was leaving, like it was really difficult for me to leave because as challenging that environment has been for me, like it has also helped me evolve into like who I am today.
Yeah, I bet. Oh yeah. Especially if you're there in that environment for that long, like you're almost, I don't want to say brainwashed, but that becomes like the normal. It was probably was it weird for you to be around friends, family, people who like were not that way at all, and just that would feel weird for me. That feels like it feels like a one extreme to the other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And bearing in mind too, right? Like afterwards I joined Estee Lauder companies, which is a completely opposite culture. And I struggle with this till today, right? Because as a person, like I'm very, very direct, right? And there's the reason why I also joined Bridgewater is because like these are my kindred souls, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it's not just like after I left, but even now, like, I struggle with like having to like, weave around like indirect feedback and all that, right? It's just like who I am. So yeah.
I think it's a superpower, though. It's funny you said the radical candor thing. I don't hear it that often. That was one of our principles at our X bar too, actually. And that was the first time I'd ever heard that term. I came from Walmart, and at Walmart, I would actually argue that's not like a pillar for them. I think that like they have, it's funny, like an organization that size, there's so many different types of people and different roles and backgrounds. I think if you had radical candor, it would get out of control
No,
sometimes.
like it work.
Yeah, it would not. I don't know if it would really work, but either way, the reason I bring that up is it's interesting because I do think it's powerful, and it's one of those things where you need everyone to be bought into it too. I know what we dealt with one
Exactly.
as we scaled was like, to be honest with you, like a lot of the younger folks that came in after we sold, I felt like it was harder and harder to hold on to that condition because there was honestly it was just a lot of younger people who didn't have a lot of work experience, and that yeah, I remember that being a struggle. It was just tough. It was tough, like the pre-exit folks and the post-exit folks. You felt like this transition of radical candor being a harder and harder thing to hold on to is something I remember vividly. Yeah,
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and it also needs to be used correctly, right? Because if these are not, if it's a double-edged sword.
sure. Oh yeah,
It's
it can't.
that ugly, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I bet.
yeah.
Yeah, and you have to. I'm sure that has to start from the top down. Like it has to be something that Ray instilled, and then everyone below him continues to follow suit. If anyone in between doesn't, it would fall apart. Wild. Yeah, I was reading before. This is funny because I thought about as well. I was like going from the Wall Street Journal to that feels like as funny as what you said about going to Estee Lauder after. I could only imagine how that was absolutely not the way at Wall Street Journal. So you've had a wild career path, and then you're at Estee Lauder. What was that like? I guess what was that experience like? I mean, that had to have been for you in your career path. I mean, you kind of hit on it, but like that had to have been such a culture shock to switch from one to the next.
Yeah. I mean, I joined Estee Lauder because like I was really sick of the commute, right? Like between New York and Westport. I can't drive, right? So it was like just such a hassle every time like I'm there. And also because opportunistically, my old boss in consulting became the global head of strategy and transformation at Estee Lauder companies.
Oh, okay.
Hired me back as a strategy
Oh,
director.
that's cool though. So you had someone there that
Yeah,
you've just
exactly.
been with. Okay, that's cool.
So that's how I enter consumers, right? Like I really wasn't like that exposed to it, especially at that level of like the more like operational roles, especially but yeah, like I joined as a strategy director in the CEO's strategic initiative team. So like, back then it was a really exciting time, right? For like Estee Lauder, especially, it was growing really, really quickly. So, anything that's like a high priority initiative, like revamping our end-to-end operational infrastructure, our building China as a second home. Like I think a lot of this is also very confidential.
Sure. Yeah. We don't have to go deep into
Yeah,
this. Yeah. Yeah.
we go into it, but I think it was a really great role for me to not just like go into consumer, but also learn the nitty gritties of it, right? Because it was a full portfolio of like not just beauty, like not just skincare, but also with makeup, fragrance, hair care, right? And also like so many markets. And so yeah, like I think it was a huge culture shock for me coming from Bridgewater, especially, right, where like it's
Yeah. I can imagine.
radical transparency, whereas like Estee Lauder is a family owned business, right? It's fashion and beauty are closer to each other than I think beauty sits exactly between fashion and CPG, and so there's still that culture of like like really respecting the creatives, right, and also like the aesthetics and also the manners and all of those. So I think it was a huge culture shock for me, but yeah, I think like what I'm also really good at is managing really senior stakeholders, right? And so that was really like what I was able to translate over. But yeah, like I think being at Estee Lauder was a shock, but it also kind of like fits me in a way that like I'm very like I there's a part of me with like the brands and the creative that I'm a consumer person, right? Like these are also kind of my people too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You have not had any boring roles. It doesn't sound like you don't have any of the like, this, at least in this part of your story, you don't have any of the like boring. My first role was like in a cubicle, like a classic Fortune 100 company analyst, finance analyst, like learned a ton, but like, oh my God, I remember some days looking at my watch and being like, it's 1 o'clock. All right.
Yeah, yeah. I
You
also
know,
didn't have a choice, right? Because this is boring, but like I'm not American, right? So like my
okay. Yeah.
process is like I have like two choices, right? It's either like finance or consulting because it really I needed to be in this role for in order for me to stay.
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, explain that. That's really interesting because I don't know if folks that are listening know that. So, I mean, how does that work? I honestly, I'm not even very well versed in that. Is it there's like, was it because you had to get into a role that the U.S. would say, hey, this is worth keeping Sophia here for? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
essentially? Yeah.
essentially. It's like the overarching concept, right? But like after school, you need a visa to stay, like, and it's not easy to stay, right? There's only very few roles that would sponsor you, and the
Sure.
basic requirement of the sponsorship is that like you cannot, like another American cannot do this job, right? Or like you need to have a certain level of like salary or like title or whatever to be able to justify this spot. Yeah, that's I think that's contributed as to why I've had all these like crazy roles, like
Yeah.
from the very beginning of my
No,
career.
I mean, I give folks in your shoes a ton of credit. My soon to be brother in law is dealing with something similar. Like he's here, but he's trying to stay, and I've been just hearing through him and my sister just how tough it is, and it's so eye opening. I honestly had no idea. My very first role, I worked at a company called Cummins. They make like diesel engines, and I would argue, I used to know the number. There, I would most of the folks that I joined with were not U.S. based. Like they were actually sponsoring a majority of the people that were coming out of college. So I got a taste of it, but I don't think I ever heard that part of it, like how hard that is. So, I mean, hats off to you. You have to work a lot harder than a lot of the folks you were probably competing with. Right. I'm sure. What were there some lessons in that?
Yeah, I mean, like the biggest lesson is just pure grit.
Yeah. Right.
Like that's my reality. Like, what am I gonna do, right? And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, and yeah, I think it's really just like a game of endurance and grit.
And was going home like just not something you wanted to do? You just didn't think that was an option?
It's an option, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm truly Singaporean, right? My parents are home and all that, so like of course they want me at home, and it's really difficult for me to be so far away, right? Like every time I go home, it's a 30-hour travel.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible, right? And I have this guilt in me too of like not being able to be near my parents. My parents are getting old, right? Like my community is like back home, etc. But I'm an oddball, right? Like which is also why like it's my company's called Oddball
Oh,
because
I love it.
life like I've been what do you call it? Like a square peg in a round hole, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think like for what I want to do, right? Like, which is like, I'm a consumer person, I'm a brand person, right? And also like entrepreneurship. The US is it, right? Like, you got to do it in the US, right? And if you win here, like, you will win other places too. So I think like that's a sacrifice that I chose to make, but it's hard. It's a hard one.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, good for you. I mean, that takes a lot of the grit's the right word, I would agree. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like when I moved to Chicago, I'm from Indiana, so it's like not that far at all. And even here, I feel the same way sometimes. I feel guilty some days, just like how far away and how little we get back. But man, yeah, being 30 hours away, holy cow, that's a challenge. Well, good. I mean, hats off to you, Sophia, because obviously it's not been an easy road to get here. So that's a great overview of your background. I think. I mean, we went deeper than I even thought we'd go there. For everyone listening, Oddball is the brand we're really focused on today. Sophia, where did the idea come from? Let's kind of like start from the very beginning of Oddball and like dig into where the concept came from.
Yeah, and I want to clarify too, right, that like with Oddball, I never thought I was going to be a traveling Jello saleswoman, right? I didn't think that was in my cards. Like it really just kind of snowballed, right? I got the careers going on.
Well, that's why I'm excited to dive in, and that's why I
Yeah,
wanted to have you on the podcast because usually it's not obvious, but you look at anyone's LinkedIn and they've started a consumer product company.
yes,
It's funny, like there is like a lot of similarities I've seen over the years for the most part. There's obviously people that have different paths. Yours is one of the weirdest ones I've seen in a good way. Like you just have so much experience with, I would argue, really challenging industries and roles. And the combination of it then going into CPG, I think is really powerful. And I say that from someone who works with different CPG brands across the, categories. So anyway, not to cut you off, I just wanted to say that because I do think it's wild. I'm excited to dive in. So yeah, this must have been, was this an item that you had something similar back at home growing up?
yeah. I'll tell you the unfiltered, like just like most authentic version of like how this all started, right? Very transparently, I wasn't thinking about starting a company, right? Because again, like for me to do that, like I can't just leave my job, right? Like I'm gonna get deported. Like
Well,
I
yeah, sure.
have
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
whole thing ready. And so for me, honestly, like it started because I'm someone that just loves junk food. I know we're in like the health and wellness space, but like just to be transparent, right? And I'm someone that's just like I don't know, like maybe it's because I grew up in like Singapore and Hong Kong. I didn't have access to these like the gushers and the nerd rolls and cheeses, etc. Right? That like when I came to the US and I saw like all these like I don't know, like Fruit Loops and Gushers and like like all these like delicious addictive junk food that I kind of had like a second childhood, right? So like I was
Oh, wow. Yeah, I
so
mean, that also just points how fucked up the U.S. food system is.
yeah, well yeah, that too, but also I also just like love like McDonald's and Raising Cane's and all that stuff, and
Okay.
at a certain
Oh,
point,
what's real quick? What's your thought on Raising Cane's? Because me and my wife, we've been saying like we're trying to be very healthy, but she's pregnant and we have always have something she's craving right now, and so
Raising
Raising
Cane's.
Cane's has been one we've been talking about.
I think I have a lot of respect for the founder. I think I love it. I mean, I liked eating fast foods, and I think this is like a more quality fast food, which is
Okay, okay, yeah.
so. And I love that they only do like one or two things, right? So, but I think it's one of the best ones. Controversial, I know, but
Oh wow, okay. We'll have to add this to the cycle soon.
please, definitely.
I'll follow up with you and let you know what our review was.
But yeah, so like, but I think at a certain point in my life, I was just like, I can't keep eating like this forever, right? Like I was like, I don't know, like getting acne as an adult, like I was gaining weight, right? Like I
Sure. Oh
was
yeah.
feeling good, and so when I really looked out there to find a replacement, I kind of felt like it was like the junk food and then what I call like the catfish food, right? I don't know if you're familiar. I literally just made it up, but
No, yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong. I used to my grandpa and dad were big fishing. Catfish, I mean, they're bottom feeders. They eat all the shit at the bottom of the lake, right? Or river, whatever.
well, yeah, kind of like that. But it's also just like it's always a food pretending to be another food, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
Or even just like I don't know, like a protein bar that's pretending to be a cookie, or like I don't know, like a protein shake pretending to be a milkshake, or like all these like popcorn with like now like protein everything, right? And there's no shame to that. It's just not how I eat as a person, right? Like I'm not a huge like health fanatic where I'm like working out 7 days a week. Like I'm not
yeah.
like
Okay, sure. Yeah.
like my macros, right? All I want is just to eat healthier and actually make it a lasting thing to eat healthier,
Okay,
right?
got
And I
it.
think like what was important for me too is that I realized I deviated so far away from how I ate growing up, right? In Asia, or like honestly, like the rest of the world outside of the US, like the food system, food culture, food manufacturing, food laws are just so different. And Asia specifically, I would say like our fundamental principle is that food equals your health, right? Whereas here, I think it's about food equals your fuel. And because food equals our health is so important to us, all of our diet and our entire cuisine is built around that. So I always say, like, for example, bone broth. It's never a fad in Asia, right? It's simply like we drink it every night because it tastes good, it's indulgent to us, and it's healthy. So snacks in particular, right? Like it's always about snacking on real food. And that I think was a big aha moment for me, right? Like
Okay.
at home, I'm snacking on fruit, right? Or like fruit-based snacks or like dried seaweed or dry seafood or meat, like etc. That's minimally processed. And so that was what I was just looking for, right? I was looking for real
And that's just, is that like, would you say that's like government down, or is that instilled like
no,
family up?
I think it's families up. Yeah, and that's purely based on the fact that food equals your health, and that's all. Like that is what we all believe in, right? I don't want to speak
Sure.
for Asian, but that's at least how I grew up with.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
So, for me, I think it was about looking for snacks or like food that's based on real food because real food is naturally indulgent, right, and nourishing.
Right. Yeah,
And I
yeah.
didn't think that it needed to be like more complicated than what it is, right? So, but when I wanted to bring that concept here, which is just snacking on real food, because I didn't understand how difficult it was. I did more research and I realized like our like system here in the US is built for that ultra processed food system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anytime
Yeah.
you want to bend that and go back towards eating real food and eating closer to nature, it's very, very challenging.
Got
So
it.
yeah, that's the reason why I wanted to start Oddball, and I can also dive into like how I chose the category of Jello, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'd love to. Yeah, let's dive into all of that. I think that's really I want to hit on that though. That whole concept of just like culture and how you guys think of food over in Asia. I never knew that, so that's really interesting. And I think it honestly seems like if that's the way that goes, that actually makes a lot of sense. It's funny. I've been thinking a lot about this because we definitely, I would say we lean on the healthier side of things when it comes to food, exercise, all that stuff. I'm like weirdly obsessed with numbers and data and all that. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
cold
yeah,
plunge, all that stuff.
yeah, and I have a
It,
lot of respect for that. I'm just
it's also kind of a problem. Like you can just go. I'm probably in the camp of people that have gone just like way off the other end of the. I need to like chill out and probably do less. Like when if it comes to like tracking and obsessing over
yeah,
macros and that fun stuff. But the reason I stopped there is because I've been trying to figure out what that is. Like why in the U.S. has it been so hard to pivot and make things healthier? Like it just like make America healthy again. Like why does it even? It's crazy that we're here at a point where that is an important thing to think about, right? But that makes a lot of sense because if you guys did it from the ground up and it's not being like forced down upon you and it's just instilled as family values, that's probably something we're missing. Sorry, I just want to hit on that because I think that's a huge, huge thing that I just light bulb went off in my head.
yeah, no, 100%. I think this is a family value that's been in us for thousands of years.
Okay.
Right? Is
Yeah.
that food is health, right? So everything is built on that, and it's not something that we think twice, right? But it's really basic principles like balance and moderation, right? Like embracing textures, right? Like we eat a lot of like the tendons and like stuff like that because it's just good for you, right? Like, and it's not it's I think we don't abide by any like diets, right? We don't. There's not much of a keto diet
Yeah.
or
So there's not like a keto or paleo or anything.
yeah. It's just like in your everyday life, like you make those conscious decisions, like growing up, right? That like but Asian food, I would say, is still indulgent. To me, is a healthy
I would
Asian,
agree. Yeah,
right?
for sure.
The techniques we use, right? Like we don't really deep fry, right? Like, but instead we wok fry, right? That is still indulgent, but it's still healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like when you have that basic principle distilled in you and you don't have to be fighting that, right? It's just such a easier like path to keep.
Yeah.
And
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. You're not fighting. You're not fighting. Well, I've never been, so that's the other thing I wanted to ask. When you're like in Hong Kong, for example, is there like the same kind of fast food options and the amount of unhealthy options that are just like at every corner here?
no,
Yeah, that's it too. It's like not as available probably.
I think ultra processing is a more American thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is maybe a super dumb question, but you might know the answer. Let's say like I was like, hey, let's take like the unhealthiest, most addictive snack we have over here, and let's just go create our own brand and start launching like unhealthy food products in Hong Kong. Would they just like shut it down? Would they be like, no, 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 no?
No. There's plenty of like, unhealthy food and like snacks and all that, but I think there's just more education and the culture around it is just different, right?
Wow, that's wild. Okay, okay, learning all kinds of stuff today.
For example, we like when my family goes to like other families' house, right, or when we go to like other people's house, it's really common to bring like fruit, right? Instead of bringing wine or instead of bringing like a dessert, right? Like we bring fruit because fruit is our dessert, right?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, like for a lot, I think a lot of Asians resonate with this, but like your the Asian mom will feed you like, a plate of fruit for your dessert, right? Because that's nature's candy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's like don't really have gluten, dairy, or refined sugar. Because like why would you need it?
I
Right?
just thought about this. Yeah, because we just had family over here for Easter. And it was just so funny because I stopped and realized like everyone had brought in dessert. And like we all are trying to be healthier. And I'm like, why do we have 7 desserts?
Right. But
Like I
dessert,
literally thought that. It was like
yeah, exactly. But why does all the dessert are just like a variation of like gluten and dairy and
100%. Oh yeah, it was like a cake, a pie, some chocolate thing. It was I was like
the same thing, just in different, like just 10 different variations.
yeah, 100%. That's
Yeah.
so funny. I never stopped and thought about that. Okay. You're
Yeah.
blowing my mind today. I'm thinking about all kinds of new
No, and
ways of thinking.
it took me a while. I mean, I've lived here for 10 years, right? I don't think it was until like I started thinking about doing oddball that I
Sure.
realized all this, right? But every time I go home, I eat whatever I want. I'm just like picking out. Not I don't want to say picking out. We're just like I'm just eating a ton. It's indulgent. I'm eating so much. I come back and I lose weight, right?
Whoa.
Like it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the food is just different, right? And the culture is just different. But when you
Interesting.
make big changes, it's like you don't have to think about it every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's so interesting. I'm gonna bring fruit to the next family gathering now. I'm gonna be like Sophia Cheng told me about this. I'm doing this.
You bring like these like they're like expensive like grapes that's like 7 beautiful grapes that are this big, right? So it's
Oh.
always like the highest
It's not
quality.
yeah, it's not like some like shitty fruit mix bowl
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you pick up at
yeah,
the
yeah,
grocery
yeah.
store. Got it.
It's like a beautiful like like bunch of grape or like one big peach, right? Because like it's always about the quality of the ingredient in the food more
Where
than
where where do you get it? Are there places in Asia like or Hong Kong even where you like are there like better places?
yeah. The Japanese grocers is where like everyone gets it.
Really?
Like Japanese culture, fruit is so important, right? And like that gifting culture is as well. So like you would literally bring like this beautifully wrapped and packaged honeydew, right? That's like it could be like $100 for a honeydew.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's like the same way you would spend $100 on a cake, right? Why
Sure.
would you
100%.
on nature's candy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, why are we yeah, 100%. Yeah, why are we buying these like massive cakes that are covered in crap that people
Yeah,
shouldn't be eating anyway late at night? Wow. Okay. Mind blown. Okay. So this makes sense. And then, but how do you go from maybe like realizing this to then coming up with Oddball? Because Oddball, for everyone listening, it's I always, the way I'm going to dumb this down. So definitely explain it better than what I'm about to do, but it's a healthier version of Jello. Is that correct?
the dumb
Ish.
version is that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
basically a healthiest version of a Jello. But I always say it's like kind of the intersection of three things, right? It's got the texture of a Jello, but we don't use any of the ingredients of a Jello, right? We don't use
Important.
gelatin because not that gelatin's bad for you, but Asians don't use gelatin, right? We use agar, which is a type of algae that's very good for you, and it's also shelf stable and it's plant based. That's just like how we eat, right?
Very cool. Yeah. I've just started learning about agar. I'm very curious to learn from you because I just started really like learning more about it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a really interesting ingredient. It's very finicky. So yeah, like we have the texture of a Jello, but that's pretty much the only similarity to a Jello. And then we've got the ingredient simplicity of a fruit cup, right? But the eating occasion, I always say, is like a fruit gummy because it's indulgent, right? What we're trying to do here is show that fruit and real food is naturally indulgent. You don't need to be adding more sugar or adding more stuff to it, right? If you highlight the quality ingredients, it can be indulgent.
Oh wow, okay. Got it. That makes a ton of sense. So then what's the for everyone listening who's hearing this for the first time, is that the biggest reason you started there with this type of product in general? Was it just like, hey, I think this is a great entry point into this concept I'm trying to bring?
Yeah, I think it's two things, right? One is that I want it's the concept of I wanted to prove out real food snacking as a concept in the US, right? But that is like that goes way deeper into supply chain, production, and all of that, which like I can get to later. I because I come from the consumer world, and I'm also giving up a lot to do this, right? I'm giving up lucrative career, I'm giving up cushy job, like all of
Of
those things.
course.
That for me, it was really important to be a category innovator, right?
Okay.
And I think that I spent a lot of time studying like the really successful brands. Like to me, they're like Chobani, they're hippie, right? Like and these different brands that I think what they've done really well is they've took a category of food that was dusty, like literally waiting to be innovated, etc. Just like Chobani did years ago with yogurt. Before Chobani came, yogurt was not a thing; it was a diet food, right?
Right. Yeah.
And what they did is to introduce it and innovate it via a premiumness and a cultural angle to it, right? And so for me, picking the right category was really important. And I knew I wanted to play in a fruit snack category, right? Fruit-based snack, because the US, when it comes to fruit-based snacks, is really just gummies, right? If you think
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
nothing else there.
Yeah,
I
there's
saw
not.
a huge opportunity there because in Asia, fruit-based snacks is such a big thing,
Hmm.
right? And then I chose the category Jello because when I first came here for college, I thought it was so weird that the only brand of jelly was Jello. I didn't grow up with Jello, right? It just happened that the US, the brand and category is Jello because there's been no competition. And
Oh,
nowhere
okay.
else in the world eats Jello, right? Like if you go to look at Italy, for example, it's panna cotta, right? In France,
Oh,
flan, right? In Japan, it's canton. In Singapore, it's agar agar. Every culture has its own version of a jelly. It's not Jello.
we just decided to make some shitty, cheap version, basically. Wow. Okay. Never knew that. Yeah, I never knew that.
Yeah.
So, wow. Okay. So, okay. A very important question then next is you obviously, this is a realization. The concept I hadn't really thought of before the podcast is, yeah, you have a very lucrative, important job that you need to keep. So, did this start as just like you making this in your kitchen, playing around with it? And obviously, you said you originally didn't start it thinking this could be a business. So, what was the point? Was it just to make something fun for you and your friends, or what was kind of the very beginning? Like, why did you even start playing around with this?
Well, I wanted something that I could eat, right?
Got it.
That was just very basically. And then, I started thinking about it more and I was like, could this be a business? And I think for me, like, my risk appetite is different, right? So like I wanted to make sure that it was worth me taking the leap, right? And I started exploring it more, but kind of just as a hobby, as like a side hustle type of thing. Eventually I met a really talented chef and I quickly discovered that I wasn't the type of founder that can just make this in my kitchen, but also because when it comes to gums and anything that's like, the jelly type of texture, you can't really do it in your kitchen as an amateur. It's
Uh,
very, very food sciencey. It's very, very finicky. So you kind of need an expert, right? So like I brought on a chef and we were, really playing around with the concept and everything because there were so many directions this could have gone. Jelly
yeah.
is one of the most versatile foods in the world, but people don't realize it. Any age, any diet, anyone can eat it. Culture will know it, right? So that was how it got started. And what's funny was that I was kind of just doing it as a hobby. A few of us were just jamming about it. But an organization called Female Quotient reached out, and they were looking for female founded food brands to showcase at the Super Bowl at Taste of NFL.
Whoa.
So that was the moment when went from an idea to actually having things that people can try. And it was crazy.
How did they even find you?
I don't know. I had this like thing where I was just joining Slack groups in CPGs.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I was at Estee Lauder, but I was like, how do I grow my community? Because I don't have an entrepreneurship background, right? And so I
Sure.
just joining Slack groups. I started joining these fellowships to just like immerse myself into it and see if it's right for me. And then they found us, and it worked out, right? Like I flew out there, and it was crazy because this was a V1 of our product, and the first like 50 people who tried Oddball were all NFL athletes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they were not my consumer at all, right? I wasn't targeting like football
Sure.
or like athletes even,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like for me, it was just like people like myself where I want to be healthy-ish, but like I'll be completely honest. I go to the gym like maybe twice a week, right?
You're
That's
like, yeah, this isn't meant to be a super healthy. You're not on that like high protein push that everyone feels like they're on right now. Yeah,
yeah.
got
But
it.
I saw these athletes like I was really nervous. I remember when I was there, but I saw that some of them were eating like 3 or 4 in a row, right? And I
Wow.
was like, I have something here.
Okay. Yeah. We got some very quick MVP. So then, did you leave there and you're like, okay, guys, shit, this could be a business? Then did you go try to sell it anywhere else? Did you start a website? Like, what'd you do? What were your first sales channels after this?
So the product is still very, very MVP, right? And I basically like spent the next year just going to farmers market to get feedback, right? Like just like understand it from a consumer. Because even if you're in retail, you don't really know how the consumer's reacting with it.
No,
But
of
when
course
you're
not.
there, this is a really rare moment in time when you're going from farmers market, and it's a schlep, right? Like that's why I call myself a traveling jello salesman. I was carrying a huge cooler,
Yeah, right.
farmers market to this and there, events like selling like hundreds at a time, but we were selling out. And so from there, it gave me more confidence that this was something that like the American audience would appreciate because everyone wants to eat more fruit, right?
Yeah,
So
I would agree.
from there, I actually randomly entered the Fairway pitch competition,
Okay.
Fairway ShopRite,
Yeah.
and they wanted to stock us. And so that was the moment when I was like, this is my cue. Like, it's time.
And at that point, were you guys, did you have a co-man? Like, did you guys already have someone that was helping you produce this, or were you guys making this all in house, or how did
Yeah,
you?
we're making it in like a small kitchen,
Wow.
small at a time, right? Because that was another thing I discovered, right? This is a really difficult product to produce. You can't really do it in a comp kitchen. Equipments, and you need really good scientists who specialize in gums.
So the shop, I mean, that's a big account to start off with.
Yeah, it was a pilot with Fairway, which is still a big account, right?
Yeah, I
For the
mean,
size that we were in.
100%.
So yeah, so that was how, that was what led me to leave my job, essentially.
Okay. Okay. And then how does that work for you for staying in the US? Is that like, I would hope, does the US kind of, God, I would hope we're good about, like, if you have an entrepreneurial endeavor like that, that we back you.
I
Is that a
think
thing?
that is the biggest thing I'm most grateful for with the US, and I think that's why the US has such incredible entrepreneurs, and it's like the pipeline for like just like global innovation, right? Is because of the ability that the US have to welcome entrepreneurs like myself from another country,
Sure.
right?
Okay. So
But
they did like that. That's it allows you to stay.
yeah, so like you have to do a lot of work, right? Like you apply for a certain type of visa. Like for me, it was the entrepreneurship visa. You need to have all your documents ready, right? You need to show certain things that you have. You need to put in like money, right? So I put in like almost all of my savings into this to get the visa to allow me to stay to do this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Wow. My mind's blown because that would make sense. I was going to be really sad if you were like, yeah, no, they don't. That doesn't help my story. I'm like, oh, geez, I feel like that's the whole point. Is we should want people that want to come build things to be here. Well, congrats on that. And so then you obviously you get some traction. So where from then till now, what does the business look like? Like what have kind of been the big milestones between those two times?
Yeah. So when that happened, I raised, I knew I had to do this properly, right? And when I say properly, it meant I need to go to a R&D company to like properly make this a shelf stable, commercially viable product and commercialize it, right? Which is a co-man piece. And it's very, very challenging because there's no machines that can make oddballs, right?
Oh, wow.
Right. So the R&D process took over a year because it seems like a really simple concept and simple product, but the simpler a product is actually the harder to make, right? Especially for
It's
something
not.
as new.
Yeah, I would say it's probably manufacturing is just not designed for one-off
Manufacturing
simple things.
for this, right? Like even the R&D process was incredibly difficult. Yeah.
And you said you dumped almost all of your savings into this. Did you? I'm always curious. This is one of the things I always love asking is like, how much did you think through trying to bootstrap as far as you could versus raising money? It's a huge dilemma. I feel like for almost every founder in the CPG space. It sounded like you basically put everything you could into it, and then R&D for that long had to have been incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
So was that kind of the impetus for like, hey, I need to go raise money to keep this going?
I think there's two types of CPG entrepreneurs, right? And you kind of need to decide which one you are. And it takes time to decide which one you are, right? Because there's a lot of factors that come into it. But I think there's one path where you go slow and steady, right? And you're building it for over like probably at least a decade, but you go slow and steady, and that's the pace. Or you try to achieve the true hockey stick growth that a CPG company can have.
Sure. Yeah.
For me to reach that decision took a while, right? Because there's a lot of factors, including like I'm a woman. How it's only 3% of venture funding goes to women, right? And
Oh,
I'm not.
wow. Is that real?
Yeah, it's real. It's completely real. It's not like
3%?
it's 2.8%.
Wow. What, do you know any reason that you know of why?
If you ask me, right, like all these things, all the marketing, all the movement, and all that, like this is a really powerful statistic, but the money is just not there. But at the end of the day, money talks, right?
Yeah. I mean, 2.8%. I would, if you just asked me like, hey, guess, I would have thought it was like, I don't know. I have no idea what number I would have said, but I would have never guessed 2.8.
Yeah, it's 2.8%.
Wow.
So that was one of the factors, right? The other factor is just my product, right? Like our product is a scale product. It's not good to be that small, right? So like for me, it was only worth doing if I knew that we had a certain level of distribution because it's really easy for a CPG company to toil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the amount of effort you're spending, like fulfilling like 5 small mom and pop stores is kind of the same as doing it like in 100 stores, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And also my personality is like I'm impatient. I like to go fast, right? Like I gave up a big career to do this. So it kind of, for me, I needed to make that decision of whether I want to go slow and steady and keep bootstrapping this forever, right? Or just pressing the pedal at the right time and just going for it. And that requires funding.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. And then to do that, you don't have to go into the details. I'm just curious, like macro, because we only got a few minutes left, and this is what I'm excited to ask. You make that decision. How do you go about wrapping your head around this is a new innovation into a product that doesn't exist today? How do you value that? Like how do you? I understand like the numbers, like you put it into Excel and decide on a lot of different things to build to something, but there's got to be a lot of just like goodwill in the brand and what you're trying to build that is tough to put a value on that you had to figure out, I'm sure. I'm just curious how you thought through that. That to me feels like the hardest thing to put a value on at the stage you're at.
Yeah, I think at the early stage, especially, the market will give you your value.
Okay. Fair
And I
enough.
think a lot of it is dependent on that. I raised when it was like a really tough time for CPG. I think it was 2022, right? It was already over the heydays of like, the 2019 CPG brand or like period where like everyone was a tech company,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And that was completely over. So it was a tough time to raise, right? Like I think the market eventually gives you your value and tells you your value, right? Because I can say it's like 10, like worth like 10 million when I first started, right? But if you can't get that,
It's not. Yeah.
it's not that, right?
Yeah.
And I think with us, like we were able to get a lot of like really exciting excitement from, especially in PR, right? Like I spent no money in PR, but we were getting picked up by all these press, and there was so much excitement, and like the Empire State Building was partnering with us, Chelsea Market was partnering with us. So
Cool.
I think like the market and consumers reward true innovation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Got it. Okay. Wild. Okay. So, it's May 9th, 2025. Where's the brand going this year and hopefully over the next couple?
So we went live a month ago.
Yeah, let's just say brand new.
This long as we're completely brand new, and our nationwide partner is Sprouts. So
Congrats. Wow.
well, to Sprouts, right? Because they are probably, I mean, I would say like probably Fresh Directive and Perfect Foods and Fairway were like three of the first believers of Oddball. Even when we just had an MVP, right? But Sprouts was the first nationwide retailer that like went for us, and they are our true partners, right? So like
Yeah, yeah.
for us, it's like really about like crushing Sprouts and crushing like the early believers that like have committed to us from day one. And I've been
Sure.
so patient on waiting for our inventory because we're always out of stock. Uh,
Okay.
Hopefully, it'll smoothen out like now. And then yeah, like more like major retail launch moments. I don't want to like share it
Yeah,
until
no, it's fine. We'll
and
keep
all.
an eye out. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like it's really also just about like building the brand and the brand awareness, right? Like just like educating on people. It's a really difficult product to just give a one sentence to, even from all like just this 45 minutes we were talking, right? Like
Yeah.
all that like Asian value principles of like how the product was created and all that. So yeah, I think that's what it's in the books for us this year.
That's exciting. No, yeah, yeah. I felt like this podcast was really interesting and fun for me. Hopefully it was for you because I understanding the background, I think sometimes is what is missed when you hear the story of somebody, and it ultimately gets you all the way to the point of why you made it, which I think is exactly the point of why I wanted to have you on. But one of the last questions, Sophia, I love to ask, and I'm pumped to ask you this because of your background. I have a feeling you have some interesting answers. But what tools do you put around you to get shit done, all the way from like what's Sophia's life goals to what she wants to get done this year, all the way down to like what shit do you have to get done today? Are you a pen and paper person? Do you use apps? Are you a planner? Like what are the tools that you surround yourself with to be successful?
Notion really was the tool that changed me from a corporate person to an entrepreneur and to move at the pace that I needed to be moving.
Really?
It
Okay.
really, like, that
I dipped my toe into Notion and really, really, really liked it. Like recently, like I tried it a few times and then like really dove in and really loved it. My team, we're like Google natives. We have like Google Sheets.
my team doesn't use Notion. I cannot get them to use Notion yet.
Okay. Oh, I'm gonna have to talk to you more about this off the
Yeah.
podcast because I can't tell you how many people now tell me like you need to be using Notion, and as I got like a little taste of it, I could see why, and then I just need to. I feel like well, we could talk more. Give me the high level of why you feel the way you're explaining this.
Because I think it's really important as an entrepreneur to know how to relentlessly prioritize and also how to be fast, like really getting that like 80 to 20 movement going. And I think that Notion is a really good tool to make sure that you have that discipline of tracking everything that you need to be doing and prioritizing it.
Okay. Okay. Got it. If you have any tools like to learn about Notion, I can also follow up with you after the podcast. I'd love to give people, I've had this question asked me a couple times because people have recommended it on here. Like I've looked at YouTube videos, but if you have any resources like that you felt like were great, I would love to add them as links in the show notes for people.
Yeah, let me think about it. But I think I kind of just like figured it out.
That's everyone's answer. Yeah. They just like jump in and figure it out. That's fair. That's fair. Well, Sophia, thank you so much. I know we're out of time. This has been a really fun podcast. I'm really excited to hear about the rest of this year, and we'll have you back on again in the future. I'd love to do another one just to learn more about how you continue to expand. But thank you for the time. Can't thank you enough for sharing your story.
Thank you for the questions that you asked. They were really great questions.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Awesome, Sophia. We'll have a good one. Good to talk to you.
Bye.
Thank you.